refund and then some prepayments on airplanes and actually accounts receivable going up, which I think has a lot to do with the defense businesses that they took charges on, but there's some other monies in there. So, when I look at cash flow, I like core cash flow. I like you generate it from operations. You don't generate it from working account changes and tax refunds. That was it's just not good.
Just doesn't, not good.
Not good. Let's move from cash flow and talk about the 737 delivery goal cut. Again, it reduced its forecast for deliveries to about 375 for this year. Again, just another cut there. How surprising was this? Or are you pretty used to seeing these cuts at this point?
Yeah, I think we are unfortunately getting used to seeing these cuts, and the noise we heard about next year wasn't good either. And I think that's really the challenge, right? I think build rates have to be higher than, they're not even achieving the 31 they say is their stated rate. But I think they even have to get above 31 to keep the company healthy, to generate cash, to absorb all that overhead, and to keep their supplier base in decent shape. And I think everyone is scratching their heads about this. Hey, it's the engine makers that can't get us engines, that Boeing management kept going through. A number of analysts on the call questioned that, multiple times. And, when we look at Airbus, they're building 8 to 10 more airplanes a month, and they're getting engines. So what's the difference, right? What's going on?
So I guess, one of the issues is the 787, the Dreamliner, which is one of my favorite aircrafts in the sky. How is that doing? Because I know it's not just the 737 that we have to worry about, but I know there's some issues with the 787 as well.
Yeah, so the 787, they've got the FAA to sign off on the fix on those, and they're starting to move them out of inventory, which is, that's absolutely a positive story. The challenge is that the 787 doesn't make much margin, so the contribution to profit isn't large, but there's a lot of money in inventory that I think Boeing needs. That cash needs to get it into the balance sheets of those airplanes, and that's going to give them some comfort going forward. So again, I think 787 an improving story, but just not a lot of profitability in that program.
And so when you think about Boeing and the different struggles that the company is dealing with, supply chain issues, labor shortages, what do you think is the biggest hurdle that the C-suite is talking about right now?
I think that I'm not going to limit it to one. Sorry, I'm going to go for two. First, I think they should be talking every single day again about what it's going to take to get 737 MAX production up and sustained at a higher level so they can generate profits. And they should be talking each and every, and actually part of that discussion is going to be, they got to be going to the White House and trying to figure out what is going on with China. China is either going to open or not open. And if it's not going to open for them, they got to go sell those airplanes that they've already built and get that cash again into their coffers. And the second thing is that defense business. That defense business is rolled over. Now we're looking at 2023. We're not going to generate cash in that business. That was, that is supposed to be one of the stabilizing factors of this company, and now now it's not performing for them. And they've got to get into that defense business, get these charges behind them, get that supply chain right size, even potentially go to Congress and talk about adjusting some of these fixed price contracts, because it's not just Boeing that's losing money on fixed price contracts. Everybody's having a problem with it. They got to work that issue hard. That's an important part of this business.
George, you mentioned China. What is the state of Boeing's relationship with China? Are they allowed to sell? Is China just not buying? What's going on?
So China has approved the MAX to fly in the country, but they are not taking deliveries of the airplanes. And so of 737 MAXs that have been built and are sitting on the tarmac out out at different Boeing facilities around the world. So as near as we can tell, this looks like part of a U.S.-China trade fight that Boeing's kind of stuck in the middle of. And again, there's 138 airplanes waiting to be delivered into China, and part of what's boosting Airbus's deliveries is the fact that they're still delivering into China. and that's giving them 8 to 10 a month.
Wow.
Again, so Boeing's got to go to the White House, I think, and start getting this figured out. Like, where are we in relations with China on trade?
Interesting. All right, let's switch gears just real quickly to the airlines. What's the top line story? What's the story here for the airlines? We know the consumers, they came back. Maybe they paused a little bit. Where are we in terms of demand there for the airlines?
Yeah, I mean, demand has continued to improve, and revenues have looked very good during earnings season. Costs are still elevated. They're not getting 2019 levels of profitability. 2019 wasn't the top tick. 2016 was the top tick. So while managements tell you, hey, it's great, revenues are coming in, we think there's a huge amount of demand for air travel. There clearly is, but the question is, why can't they get us back to margins that look like 2019? It's labor costs, it's fuel costs. So my sense is there's still some weakness at the low end of leisure, and business isn't back fully. So business, we think, is about 75% back, and the low end of leisure, I think, is going to struggle with higher inflation, and especially I think as we go into economic slowdown, whatever you think is coming just over the hill, that's going to be the challenge for them.
All right, good stuff. George Ferguson, he covers the airlines, he covers the aerospace and defense companies, all tied in, of course. George Ferguson, senior aerospace and defense analyst at Bloomberg Intelligence, calling in from our Princeton office. Looking at the markets here again, kind of what we've seen for most of the morning. Some green as it relates to the S&P and the Dow, up about 0.5%, 0.8 of 1% respectively. Nasdaq off about 0.3 of 1%, but certainly better than we saw in the futures market. So trying to turn its way through these earnings. Coming up, balance of power. David Weston, he will drive the conversation forward. He likes to bring Wall Street and Capitol Hill together. This is Bloomberg.
And thanks, Paul. I'm John Tucker. Bay Area business time is 8:56 now. It's time for the Bay Area's best traffic and weather. And Larry Olson has been keeping his eyes on your commute. Hopefully it's over. I mean, the delays. Larry.
That would be a negatory, Ghost Rider, but thank you for your optimism.
So optimistic, John.
This report sponsored by Houston XTM. 101 South connector to eastbound 237. In fact, it's a singular, John. Maybe you made it worse. It's a big red crash taking up that transition 101 South to eastbound 237. Northbound 280 Lawrence Expressway, two-car crash. Center divider 101 North connector to 85 South. Stalled car. Bay Bridge, lights are on. Say goodbye to retaking medicine every few hours by Musin XTM to get cough and chest congestion relief for 3 times longer than typical 4-hour cough and chest congestion medicines. That's 3 times longer relief for chest congestion and cough. Nothing lasts longer among OTC cough and cold medicines used as directed. With the Bay Area's best traffic, Larry Olson, Bloomberg 960 and 103.7 FM HD2. John.
All right, thanks, Larry. And let's get the weather forecast, 3-day weather forecast, the update from Gary Best in the Weather Center. Hello, Gary.
Well, John, we're generally going to have fair weather across the Bay Area for the next several days. There's certainly no rain coming up, just some passing clouds at times with a couple of weak fronts moving through. So the forecast for today, looking at partly to mostly sunny skies developing, it's going to be breezy. It's going to be on the cooler side as well. So our temperatures around the Bay Area about 60, 61 or so, but 70 across some inland valley locations later on today. Tonight, mainly clear skies, a bit on the cool side, too, between 40 and 50. North Bay will hit about 40, 50 in San Francisco. Sunshine coming up on Thursday, high temperature reaching the upper 60s near the Bay. 70 to 75, though, further inland. Clear and cool weather for tomorrow night, down between 45 and 50 then. And still mostly sunny. Still a bit on the cooler side on Friday, low 60s around the Bay Area and 70 further inland. Looks like minor fluctuations with the temperature over the weekend with fair weather. This is Gary Best on Bloomberg 960 and 103.7 FM HD2. John?
All right, Gary. Thanks very much. 50 degrees and clear skies right now in San Francisco. Much for the markets? Well, we are mixed with the major averages. S&P 500, 18 points higher. That's up 0.5%. Dow Jones Industrial Average up 292 points. That's a rise of 0.9%. The Nasdaq 100 is down 50 points. Down 0.4% right now, shaving some of the earlier losses. Remember, we're down as much as 2%. You're listening to Bloomberg 960, 103.7 FM HD2.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com and the Bloomberg Business app. This is KNEW Oakland, KOSF 103.7 FM HD2 San Francisco.
never let me forget that. And I might miss some words during this debate, mush two words together,